Good afternoon or evening. It's Tony Dottino doing my Live with Tony. And you may be able to tell I've got a little bit of a warmer shirt on today. We're in the Orlando, Florida area, and our temperatures dipped into the low 40s last evening, and the day has been like 55 degrees. And yes, that's not as bad as those of you that are in the Northeast and have suffered through a foot or more of snow and temperatures in the teens and 20s. So I do remind myself as I take a walk outside and go about my day, and did a little bit of a hike today, that 55 to 58 today was not such a bad thing. However, this is one of my New York shirts that I used to wear during the cold weather days, and it comes in handy along with a good pair of socks. So stay well and stay warm as I follow the temperatures across the country. But we did have a planning meeting this past week, and I wanted to share with our Live with Tony audience what our plans are for at least 2021. All with the variance of what do schools do, colleges, universities have to do with opening, and when will they open, and when will people get back to something called a semi-normalcy. And what our current thinking is right now is what I'd like to at least share with you, and give you at least an update for where we'd like to go in 2021 and what that might look like. And then different people that have been contacting us and raising additional suggestions. So let's start with, first thing we would like to do is have a qualifying round of events. A little bit different than we did this year, but certainly Lumosity would like to be a player with us again next year and collaborate. So that turned out to be a really great partnership and collaboration, and MIT would also like to be a part of that since the National Science Foundation grant for education was approved. MIT is the initial hosting of the Memory Championship. That will be followed with Princeton and Columbia. So the good news was that foundation grant was approved, and if all goes well with COVID and schools, etc., by the summer of 2021, we'll begin to put that into action, which would mean that the live memory competition for the nation will be held at MIT, and we're looking to pin down calendar dates for September, October 2021. Now, how do we get there? We had a lot of good feedback on the mix of the Lumosity events and what we call our live stage events. But in order to get the right mix of qualifying people that will eventually go off to MIT and be on the live stage, we want to have qualifying events, as we talked about. And there's two legs to that. One is, how do we mix the qualifying events again with the Lumosity games and the memory games? How do we do that virtually? So we're looking somewhere in the May to July time period, and we aren't quite sure yet because we're hoping with the vaccine that some definition of things will begin to take place in the month of January. I'm not sure that will or will not happen, but we're planning on at least going virtually for our qualifying events. So we're not thinking we're going to be hosting that anywhere yet, but if our fingers are crossed and something makes, that we may change that, and we'd love to go back to Penn State and do that live if things were to open up and things were going to happen. But right now we're planning on virtual, thinking that there's too many ifs, ands, maybes, question marks, black holes that aren't happening. So we're thinking virtually. And then if we think virtually, that then gets us into a couple of thoughts on, if we go virtually, can we do regional virtuals and have people from regional events come to MIT? Or we just do one big national, everybody from anywhere in the country who wants to compete on the virtual, similar to what we did on November 14th of this year. If we do that virtually, then the second thing that becomes a variable is, how do we mix the qualifying events between Lumosity games and the traditional USA Memory Championship games? And since we had over 300 people that registered to play this year, then that brings the question of how do we get the scoring done for the mix of Lumosity games and traditional memory games. Since our traditional games, we usually would get 75 to 100 people, and we'd have scorers, and we'd have a conference room, and then we'd do that live. Well, how do we do that on virtual? So that then raises the question of we need to find one of our colleagues in the memory sports world that will help us with how do we score the traditional memory games virtually. So that brings us to, okay, will we do regionals, invite people in live from regions? Will we do a national event and just invite, we're thinking probably 12 to 15 people. So we want to open that field up from 8, which is we were limited to because of virtual and how to run that effectively, to have maybe 15, but for sure at least 12. We did that in 2020 where we brought 12 finalists to the stage. So how many people do we want to bring to the stage, and do we want to do 4 events on stage, and how would we do all of that? And so we've had experience with that a number of times and the events that we would do. So that brings us to the qualifying, and then the next piece to that would be Lumosity would be a major sponsor and player in that, and we're talking about what prize money would look like. So, but is there a financial goal that people would go after versus, hey, for the fun of the competition? So that pendulum is swinging back and forth, and we've got several conversations that we need to have in the January time period to start setting dates down. So we agreed that by the end of January, we'll set our date for virtual or live. So we're trying to go through at least January, but here's when we'll do our qualifying events, and what month and date and how. And then from there, we'll pull that forward to our national championship events. Now, if any of you have got any suggestions and thoughts that listen to this and want to send some notes back, my easiest way of communicating with people that's the fastest and gets me on board is sending me emails. I know Facebook and Twitters and whatever, but Facebook is not my fastest way of communicating with people. My email is my quickest way. So anybody listening to this that wants to share some thoughts and ideas on next year's virtual, live, qualifying, final events, activities, email me. And my email is adottino@aol.com. That's adottino@aol.com. That's my fastest way. I've left it as my personal. I don't send it through my business. I look at these every day. I probably look at them 2 or 3 times a day. And they tend to be more personal. And in the subject matter, put USA Memory Championship. And this way I will realize that this is something I will put right at the top of my agenda and include any thoughts and comments that you may have for next year's event and the priority list. The other thing that we're kicking about is then doing work that we may do with the online courses. And Brain Power series is now taking more grip. We have our traditional Maximum Memory Mastery online course, which for anybody that would like to compete in the event in the May to July time period would be an awesome practice training ground to really get yourself best prepped for that. And that's online underneath the Maximum Memory Mastery. Though we are looking by January, by the end of January, we'll probably open it up into what we call the Brain Power series, and we're adding 2 courses in there. One will be the mnemonics, which we currently have, which has been well received, and we've done well with doing that. But from it, 2 courses have grown from it. One is called Brain Health, and people have been interested in what are the elements of what I can do now to improve my brain health. And I've done this week 2 sessions on exercise and the changes to the hippocampus and memories and what it does in helping us grow a larger hippocampus, what it does to minimize the shrinkage of other areas, what it does to our blood pressure and memory. So brain health has become a hot topic through the people we've interacted with over the last 18 months. And so Michael Dattino is working on putting together a course on brain health that will be underneath the Brain Power series. And he will begin in January of also teaching a course underneath the Brain Fitness Academy. So those are things that are going to feed into the 6 elements of brain health. So we've talked about those over the last year, from sleep to exercise to mental challenges to stress reduction, and what those elements all mean to us. And so we've expanded that, and there's a course that'll be coming out in the January time period on things you can do for your brain health. And then last but not least, he's done a lot of personal one-on-one coaching with people on how do you take these principles of memory and brain health and how do you integrate them to become a learning, creative, imaginative capacity and building machine. And that's going to be learning to learn. How do we take these fundamentals and put the skills together and take the package into one and teach people that want to go for professional accreditations, working with a law student, working with a fireman, working with the person that had a stroke. How do we integrate those things? And I think Michael Dattino has done some amazing one-on-one coaching that has really changed the lives of the people he's worked with in this past year. And he's done that all virtually. So that will be a 3rd course that will be coming up onto the Brain Power series. And if you look at all 3 of these underneath the Brain Power series, and these are life-changing efforts and work. And what he's done with this over the last 18 months has just been fantastic. So those are the things that we're working on. Memory Championship and hosting it live next September, October. New elements in terms of what we can share and teach with people so they can do this online. And then what I'd love to be able to do getting going next year in February, March time period is start a monthly webinar, a monthly web broadcast, or teaching sessions for people that are enrolled in these programs, and then getting them online and giving them the opportunity to learn and do deeper dives with all of the skills that we're providing. So 2020, despite the COVID, has turned out to be a fairly productive year from our brain health point of view. And Live with Tony's I will continue to do on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays in the 5 o'clock time period. And I just love to get some feedback from people on other topics that you may be interested in, that you may want to hear more about. And I am just like constantly reading. So I'm like constantly going to keep going with all the different materials I continue to subscribe to. And I just love sharing these messages and looking to make a difference in people's lives. So we will pick this back up again on Monday in the 5 o'clock hour. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the Giants are able to beat Cleveland on Monday night and remain somewhere in the NFL playoff picture. But if the next week's throbbing of the Arizona Cardinals, I'm not so optimistic about that anymore. So we'll see what happens this weekend, and they play Monday night, so we'll have to wait till Monday. But till then, have a good weekend. Enjoy that weekend, and I hope you stay safe and begin to at least take a look at what we're doing in Maximum Memory Mastery and look at the plans we have. And please send me your comments and notes at adottino@aol.com. We've got a lot of exciting things that we're planning on in 2021, and I'd love to get suggestions and inputs from people on how we can even make it a better year. Have a good weekend. Stay healthy and well. Stay warm and dry, and we'll see you Monday evening.